All right, hello again, everyone. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And in the last video, which has not been produced yet, but just so you know, it's what we've been doing is we're working on our fourth iteration of a body mass index program. All right, what we're going to try to do is we've come in here and we've added two new functions. They're both generic data validation functions. All right, the first one will be able to check whether or not our height and weight are integer value. All right, and the second one will go in and check whether the height and weight are within range. All right, and we're going to do that. And ideally, hopefully, it's going to replace a lot of the stuff that we have in here. So these were our data validation functions. Here, we're going to put something that we're going to call is the data valid function. All right. So this is going to return a Boolean. Is the data valid? We won't have to have anything passed into it, but we're going to get an error right now because we're not returning anything. So let's just return false, just so we don't have an error. All right, so what do we want to do here? Well, this is either going to be successful, in which case we should return true, all right, or it's going to be unsuccessful, in which case we're going to return false. So we'll call this, how about this, success flag. Returns true if all is okay. Returns false if all not okay. Okay, so we'll assume that it's going to work. So we're going to say bool success equals true. We're going to assume it works. Now, if it doesn't work, we're going to have to set it to false someplace. All right. We're also going to have an error message to show any, all errors that may occur with data. Okay, so that'll be a string. We'll call it ERRMSG for error message, and we're going to set it equal to nothing. All right, now when we get all done, what we're going to end up returning when we're all finished is we're going to return success. Let's call it is success. Anything with bool, I like to put is in front of it. All right, so we'll return here is success. Now we have no errors, no warnings, no anything here, but we're not checking anything yet. So first, we have to validate the height. Next, we will validate the weight. Now we're not done, of course. I got to write this stuff, and we're going to write it right now. So what are we going to put in here? Okay. Well, we're going to have to put in here the height and the weight. Now, we're going to get errors because we don't technically have access to the height and the weight in here. So let's bring them in. We have the int for the height and the int for the weight. All right. So validate the height. Well, this is going to be a possible error message. All right, and the first thing we want to say is int 32, and what are we checking? We're checking the height. right? We're checking the height. Okay, and if we have an error message, what do we want to say in here? Well, we want to say, we'll say, how about height error? Now we're getting an error, and it says cannot convert from an int to a string. All right, so we will make it a string, not a problem. Height dot toString, and again, if there's an error, we're going to want to say height error. All right, now that's going to either return true, meaning we put a valid integer in there, or false, meaning we didn't put a valid integer in there. Now we can say error message is equal to our isWithinRange function. All right, and again, it'll be the height. And again, just like we just did, we can say height, and we can say, no, not weight. We can say, just like we just did, we can say height error. But remember, this needs more stuff. It needs a minimum and a maximum. Well, the minimum is min weight, and the maximum is max weight. Sorry, height, not weight. So that's height, and so is that. Now, if you're confused, let's go over all of it before we put in the stuff for the weight, because it's going to be basically the same thing. We want to validate the height. All right, so first, validate that an int was inputted. And then next, we want to validate that the value is within range. So again, for height, it's 12 through 96. All right, so we've got all that, and that's the good news. All right, also, just so you know, we're doing the same thing for the weight, but I just have to change everything that's in there that is currently an H for height. I've got to make it a W for weight. So we validate the height. Now we want to validate the weight. Validate that an int was entered. Error message, so this is weight, and this will be a weight error if we didn't put in an integer. And this will be within range, but this range now is 1 through 777. So again, this is weight, and this is weight error, and this is min weight and max weight. So now we've gone in here and we've done all this. We have validated the height, that it is an integer and it's within range. We have validated the weight, that it is an integer and it is within range. All right, so if we had any kind of error, then error message won't be empty. So if there was any type of error in either height or weight checks, error message will not be empty. So set is success, is that what we call that up here? Is success to false. All right, so if error message is not equal to nothing, what we just said there, we want to say is success equal false. Otherwise, it's true and we want to return that. All right, so if that's the case, let's also come in here and let's do a write error message. All right, so we know what it is. And then we return success. Now, that's all good. Fine, dandy, whatever. But now what we want to do, okay, what we want to do now is in our regular program, main program, all right, what I'm going to do is comment out a boatload of stuff, and then once I'm sure that it works, we'll remove it. But this input height we shouldn't need anymore. We're handling it in our own way. This convert height from string to int, etc., we don't need that anymore. We also don't need the range check. We also don't need any of this stuff for the weight. Now, right now, when I come in here and comment every bit of this out, which is what I'm going to do right now, we're probably going to get some errors because there's other parts in the code that rely on this. But we're going to fix that in just a second. Notice right now we've got height equal, weight equal, etc. All right? So what we want to do is I'm going to totally change this. Again, I'm going to grab everything that's in main here, and I'm going to comment that out as well. After our welcome to version 4. Let's get every bit of this. All right, some of it we're actually going to be able to use, but that's okay. For now, we're commenting all of it out. Okay, now notice we're getting these. These are warnings saying we've got height, weight, BMI, and BMI status we're not using. All right, so now I'm going to say a try catch. So I'm going to do a try in here. All right, and we're going to put some code in there in a minute, but I'm just going to catch if I have any kind of an exception. Okay, and if I have any exception, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a console.writeLine of the exception. So if something was screwed up, okay, we'll write it there. All right, so we've got that try catch. Let's move this thing up to the top because this is just our welcome message. All right, so it'll still say that. Now, what are we going to try? Well, we want to make sure that everything is valid. So if what did we call that? We just called it is the data valid? Let's make that a little I. All right. If is the data valid? Now it's going to give an error, and that's okay. We'll fix it in a minute. If that's the case, what do we know? All right. We know, so if that's the case, we know height and weight are both valid values. So what? So continue with program. Okay. All right. Now the problem that we have here is we have not yet come in and checked the height and checked the weight. So we're going to have to come in here and say kind of what we did in here before. All right, so I'm going to grab a bunch of this stuff. Like that. And I'm going to put that in here. And no problem, don't worry about it right now, don't worry about it. We're going to actually have to do that first before we do our isDataValid. So, not much, just this little bit in here. All right. So for this try, start with this. All right, we've got this height string, and we've got this height. Okay, let's take all this and let's uncomment it. All right, so we've got here int height. Okay, we don't really want to declare that inside of the try. We've got it up here. So we can come in here and just say, we declared both these in here. Let's put height in here and let's put height string in here too. So we'll put in here string height str. We'll set that equal to nothing. We'll say height string here. And we'll also say string weight is nothing, and that'll be our weight string. We'll move these over. All right. Now, we don't need these anymore. So we've already put them in. So input height. So please enter a height between this and this. All right, we want to do that. Okay. And with the isDataValid, that isDataValid doesn't need anything passed into it, if you remember. Where is it? Right. It needs the height and the weight. Okay. So the reason I'm telling you that is we need to do that stuff outside of here. Good. All right. So we're still going to run into a potential problem, but it'll actually work out okay. So if you say, what the heck are you even talking about? Let me tell you. So this is input weight. And now I can't say anymore no validation done because we're going to do validation. So this will be please enter a weight between min weight and max weight, and this will be weight string. Now what we can do is we can pass in both height string and weight string. All right, now if I haven't totally screwed you up, in fact, it's got to be height and weight, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, we'll fix it right now. All right, so this will have to take There we go. All right. What's important for you to do right here, right now, because I've got so much garbage in here, is to play computer. All right. Now, it says here, an object reference is required So I didn't put the word static in any of these, probably. I just put private. So let's replace the word private with the word static. Static means one, for lack of better words, and everything is being shared. Probably the easiest way for you to look at that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I want to see if I've got everything fixed. Okay. Now, is in 32. Wait. str. And this will be wait str. All right. Believe it or not, we're almost done with much of this. Now I should be able to come in and get rid of, we'll fix that in a second, but we should be able to come in now and get rid of most of this stuff in here that we've commented out. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff for the height and the weight, and I am still going to want to call calculate BMI and calculate status and write out statistics, but I can now get rid of input height, input weight, and everything involved in it. So look at how much code I'm removing. Now I know I've added some. All right. Okay. So I've still got my min height, my max height, my min weight, my max weight. Nothing has changed there. Okay. I've still got the same numbers, the same stuff I was using before. That's all there. Now, this is a little goofed up, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. The height string and the weight string are both being used, and we're validating them. All right, so right now we're not returning anything. So that is the stuff valid. I guess I removed all that stuff that was in there before, so we'll put it back. Not a big thing. All right, so we're going to come in here and we're going to say pool, we called it isSuccess. Set that equal to true. All right, that's going to be our success or not flag, and we're going to have a string, ERMSG, and we're going to set that equal to the empty string. So let's put comments in here. Boolean flag, and Boolean flag means it's going to return true or false. Returns true if no errors, and false if there are errors. It's pretty simple. And this will contain any error messages that occur. Okay? Now, we have to come in here and let's validate the height. And after we get done with that, we're going to validate the weight. These are things I put in before but accidentally removed. So I'm going to say error message is equal to is int 32, And what are we checking in here? All right, we're checking the height. So that'll be height str. And if there's a problem with it, we want to put in height error. All right. And then we'll say, in fact, we're going to, instead of saying equal, we're going to say plus equals, because we want to keep adding to it, potentially, if there's several errors. So error plus equal. Now we have to say is within range. And again, we're going to check height str. If there's an error, we're again going to say height error. All right, and now we have to check and add to this our minimum height and our maximum height. Let's put it over there so you can read all of it. So min height and max height. All right. So that's going to validate the height. Next, we want to do the same thing, but with the weight. So I can grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard, paste it in, and I'm going to have to change all these H's to W's. Now I should mention this little nugget that I've sent 2 messages already to GitHub asking them to free up and let me get back into my account so I can put all this code out there. They have not answered either message. All right, so now I've validated the height and I've validated the weight. So if error message is still the empty set, this means there were no height or weight errors. All right. If not, there either was or were 1 or more errors. All right, so let's get rid of this. Continue with the program stuff. And this is going to say if, we'll get rid of the blank line that's there too. If the error message is not equal to nothing, there was an error. So we'll say is success is equal to false. And all we got to do now is return is success. All right. Now, let's see why I'm getting this. It should be if is data valid. Oh, okay. Not a problem. So let's see. I did a bunch of this already. So is success. We did all this. Okay. This is where all of this in here. This should be weight string. And this should be height string. This will take literally 5 minutes to fix. string and height error. Good. All right. We've already done some of this. I just repeated it foolishly. All right. So let's get rid of all this stuff that we put in here because we don't need it. So if it is valid, what do we know? We know that we put in a valid height, we put in a valid weight. So if it is valid, okay, if it is valid, then what do we want to do? Well, we have to calculate the BMI, calculate the BMI status, and write out all the statistics. So let's grab all this that we had here, calculate the BMI statistics, and put in the status. And that now goes in here, and we can take out the comments. Where we have double comments, they'll just become a single comment. And where we don't have comments, there we go. So what I want to do before I even try to run this, there could still be errors, but let's take a look at everything that's in here. Again, we don't need this stuff. The system puts in some using statements that it thinks you might need. Well, we don't need it. We have now introduced data validation. We created two generic data validation functions. We want to eventually put those into a class library so we can use the same things in both our console and our GUI apps without having to rewrite them. All right, so let's look at what's in here. This I'm not going to go through. These are all the constants. We've talked about those already. So we come in here and tell you to enter a height. All right, we tell you to enter a weight. Now, what we're saying here is syntax error. Something is expected here. Oh, the whole thing has got to be. It's inside of an if statement. So if the data was valid, meaning we put in a valid height and a valid weight, so if they were both valid, we can now calculate the BMI. We can calculate the BMI status. We can write out the statistics. All right? So in here, what we've done is we told them to enter a height and enter a weight. If the stuff came back valid, we can say height equals int.parse height string, and we know it's valid already because we checked it previously. And we can say weight equals int.parse weight string. Now we can calculate. We can do everything. Let's see if it works, or if I've got some errors, which I could very well have with all the copying and pasting, etc. that I did. But let's see if it works. Okay, it's giving me errors. Let's see if we have one or more errors here. Name plus. Didn't put a semicolon on the end here. And probably the same thing over here. Yep. Okay, those are pretty easy to fix. Those are syntax errors, as we talked about in an earlier lecture. So let's run it again. Ideally, we're going to get the same stuff we had before. So nothing. So now it says, please enter, nothing. All right, we're getting an error. All right, don't worry about this. So it said, please enter a height. Now notice we got weight error, must be between 1 and 777. That means this one worked. For some reason, the height one did not. But the good news is the weight one worked. All right? But the height one didn't. So let's take a look at why that might be the case. So the first thing we did when we came in here was we said height equals height string. Okay, good. Height string is read line. Please enter a height between this and this. Yes. Height string equals this. Please enter the weight. Okay, and then we said is the weight valid, and we passed in the height string and the weight string. Okay, I'm going to add also, before this, I'm going to add another \n here and here, just so it's a little easier for us to read. All right, isn't and is within range. Height string, height error. Max height. That all looks correct. Weight string. Is in 32. Okay. Where are we for time? We're already up to almost 40 minutes. Let me run it again. And what I'm going to try, I'll try something a little different this time. I'm going to put in a height that's out of range. And I'm going to put in a weight that's out of range. All right, we're getting weight error. It must be between 1 and 777. That's okay. I'm going to change that to just weight, so it says weight must be between that. And I'm wondering if I'm missing a plus equal sign in here someplace. These should all be plus equals. Same with these. Must be without it. There must be there. Okay, this is within range. This should just have name here. All these places where I'm saying weight error in there, I don't want to say that. And height error. I just want to say height or weight. Okay. All right. And again, did I make all these plus equals, plus equal, plus equal, plus equal? Hopefully that's okay. Let's see what it looks like now. All right, I'm going to leave it blank. and I'm going to leave it blank. Weight must be a valid int. Weight must be between these two. All right, it's not showing me the stuff for the height, and that's okay. We're going to look for that right now. Again, I might be missing a plus equal in there. So that should be a plus equal, and that should be a plus equal. All right. All right. Let's see. I'm going to leave them both blank. All right, so we're still getting weight must be a valid int. That's good. Weight must be between 1 and 777. So that part's working, but it's still not catching our height for us. Okay. Wait space. I like to put \n's in there just so everything is kind of by itself. \n. Looks good. All right, let's try it again. All right, so we're going to leave both of them off. Height must be a valid int. Well, it's giving us height must be a valid int twice, so something's wrong in there. Height must be between 12 and 96. Weight must be a valid int, so that's in there twice. I don't know why. And weight must be between 1, so that's good. All right, let's try it one more time and put in valid values and see if they're still working. So if I put in 72 and like 100, it's telling me it's underweight. Everything is working now except it's printing the invalid thing twice. Don't know why that would be. It has to do with the plus equal that's in there. I'm going to save this and come back. Run one more thing on here, and we're going to do two things. We're going to go through the entire program, and I'm going to fix where it's printing out the duplication. Notice if I do come in and run it, and I'll put in an out of weight, and a height that's out of range, and a weight that's out of range. I won't get it to print twice. See that? Height must be between this, and weight must be between that. So that works. It's only when I'm leaving it empty that it's printing twice. We'll look at that when we come back, and we'll get this thing working in the next lecture. And then after we explain all this, we're going to do one more iteration of this where we're going to put this into a class library. Once we get that to work, we're going to basically go back to our GUI version and implement all the changes we put in there as well. So I'll see you in a few.